concept artist is a person who's going to take the story and interpret it visually. I felt like I grew up in a really special window of cinema where the protagonists were my age. And it was like they were all just blueprints and instructions for how I should be spending my summer. So with movies like The Explorers or Time Bandits or E.T. or Goonies, those movies were like, I was at the sweet spot age for those films. And so it just felt like, I know realistically the timeline wasn't like back to back, but it felt like they were back to back. And it was just, anytime I had time to go to the cinema, there was another film with a little kid that was my age. And what they were doing, I was going to try to figure out how to recreate in my real life. But at the same time, I knew these were things that were being made by people. And specifically Indiana Jones, I told my dad after seeing the Raiders Lost Ark, I wanted to do that. And I want to figure out how to do that. And literally that weekend, we went and got a Super 8 camera from a used camera store and some film. And I started trying to make a movie in my backyard. That was the summer between third and fourth grade. And then I still have all the gear, my little reel-to-reel cutting the 8mm at the kitchen table gear. And you learn a lot when you just are making it up, figuring it out on your own.
What was the first film that you shot in your backyard?
The very first roll of film was a monster movie with a plastic dinosaur and some green army men. And it wasn't stop motion. I was just puppeteering the dinosaur where it was just the legs, like this. And I was controlling it from the top, and then I'd cut, and then I'd tilt up, and then I'd control it from the bottom. So then the dinosaur was doing this. It's real simple stuff, but it worked. It was so fun. And the more elaborate film we did after that was called Nort, which was right on the coattails of a film called Tron. Nort is Tron backwards. And I learned real quick what was required of lighting. And to try to make a film that's neon and nighttime is really hard with the Super 8 camera with limited light resources. So most of that film came out really dark. And we didn't even have personal computers at home at that time. So we made a computer out of a cardboard box and a typewriter. And my friend got sucked into the cardboard box. He went into the computer.
That's incredible. And so you made these two first films, and then did you go to college for it, or did you just go straight into making things? What was your journey?
The journey is mixed between drawing and filmmaking. Saw Star Wars when I was I was 4, and when I went home, I tried to figure out how to draw like a typewriter, and it drove me to wanting to draw. It drove me wanting to relive the fantasy of what I saw on the screen. So the drawing was merely just sort of an exercise to see it again, because you were lucky if you saw a commercial on TV. It's funny, toy packaging was really important to our demographic and our age because it was a thing you could look at, or a cereal box was a thing you could look at, and then it would trigger the imagination, or your drawings would. So motivating you to draw these films did that for me, and then kept drawing all through childhood, kept making home movies all through school. And then when it came to like graduating, it was like, well, my dad was like, where do you want to go? I'm like, I'm torn, art school or film school, I don't know. And applied to an art school and received a scholarship to Ringling College of Art. And that really kind of sealed the deal. And I guess in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, it is a gateway to Disney, and animation is sort of the hybrid of art and filmmaking going together. So let's go for it. And so that's how I found my way into that space.
Okay, so I know you wear a lot of hats now.
True.
Would you say that your role is conceptual design, concept artist? Like, what would you say your role is? I know it's hard to like really pick one.
Yeah, it is. I guess my role lately is just storytelling in any medium. And artist plays a heavier role than maybe most. It just seems to be one of the skill sets that I lean in on most. I'm a very visual person, visual learner, visual storyteller. So when it comes to conceptualizing the ideas, there may be a sentence, there may be a drawing. They kind of going together in whatever the project is. There's always something visual happening. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, from a conceptual artist standpoint, that became a skill set after college in a lot of work that was happening with my studio, Real Effects, in sort of building an art department in the early 90s and the early 2000s for all the storytelling needs of the company that we had started. So, yeah, concept artist was definitely a space that kind of checked boxes for me and I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like with you and other storytellers, you have original ideas and it's everything. It's a concert of all the arts kind of coming together.
Yeah.
The drawing, the story, the writing, the working with all of the teammates to just sort of achieve the larger goal of seeing your dreams come to life on a screen. That's really, it's hard to define that. It's all of it.
Yeah.
I guess it's producer. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I want to dive into all of that, but how would you define what a concept artist is?
I guess, and I probably really mess this to finishing up, but I think concept artist in the realm of filmmaking and animation is a person who's going to take the story and interpret it visually, and everything that's drawn that's going to end up on the screen is informed by the character and the motivation of the characters and the story and the place. So you're not just drawing a prop, you're not just drawing a character or an environment. You're 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 exuding the story points through what you're drawing, which goes back to what I had majored in college, which is illustration, where one picture needs to tell an entire story. And so every choice you make, from where the lights are in your illustration to how a character is posed to how they're dressed, it's all, there's a story behind the dirt on the patch of their knee. You know what I mean? There's you, when you look at Norman Rockwell's, which is what I loved doing as a kid, and then what kind of led me to illustration as my major in art school, which was that you could stare at this picture for hours and you could fill in all the gaps narratively. You could go, wow, there's so much thought put into everything in this image, and it really tells a larger story. So when a conceptual artist is tackling something, um, there's intention behind every little blemish or imperfection, and you just don't just draw the thing, you know.
Right. No, yeah.
Yeah.
I just watched a video, I think it was like of Disney's animations from like 1970, 80s, and like how
Mm-hmm.
they did that like frame by frame. Is that
Yeah.
still how you do it?
You mean 2D? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
2D animation?
2D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is definitely the way people still do it. Uh, you know, it's easier now than ever to do 2D animation with these universal tools. So Procreate has been really an amazing thing. It's just made it easier for everybody to bring their drawings to life, and it's so intuitive in how you use it. And then certainly there's a lot of other tools out there that empower those who work in like the traditional hand-drawn style of animation. And there's been a resurgence. I don't, and a lot of people would argue it never really went away. I mean, animation on television is a strong example of 2D alive and well. However, I think you'll see these next few years more and more live action, or sorry, animated features that are going to be 2D that get the and garner the most attention. I think gone are the days where we were enamored by something like CGI.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was an exciting time in '95 to see Toy Story, and then the movies that followed after that, which were very dimensional and well rendered and lit. But now, since all the you can make anything look pretty, but will it really captivate you? Is a whole other thing. And so when something is made by a human, there's the imperfections. And I think we are now more so now and tuned into the need for something that's analog and handmade and 2D that can really shine. And it's so weird how we all fall into, when we create stories with art, we fall into our own traps from a style standpoint. It's like everything starts to look like a certain look, and there's no reason for that because it's drawing is like handwriting. You draw, I draw, we'll all draw, and it'll all look different, and that's what's so great. It's like there's so much possibility for new looks, new
Mm-hmm.
windows into other people's minds on how they picture things. So that is an exciting space, and that will come through, I think, more in the just sort of the more traditional approach to art and how art is brought to life with stories on the screen. So yeah, I think there's just going to be more and more of that where things are more collaged and mixed up and experimental. It's not experimental for experimental sake. I think people now realize you still got to hold the hand of the audience and bring them in, and you don't want to lose them just on the style, you know. But I'm excited for all the new things I keep seeing peaks of that are going to be coming out in the next few years from an animation standpoint.
I remember watching I think it won not an Oscar not this year but last year. It was that animated feature Flow with the black
Yeah.
cat. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so interesting to me because it wasn't like, whoa, this technology is crazy. Like it was
No.
very simple. It was a cat on an advent, like on a life
Right.
journey, and it was
Yeah.
so simple. I've never cried so much in my life. Like it was like
Right.
such a like
I had the
human
same feeling.
story. And I think
Right.
that's kind of to your point of like people are going to be drawn to that simplicity.
It it no one cared whether the cat had every fiber of hair on it
Mm-hmm.
or that it was perfectly lit. We are so tuned in now to being more not forgiving but just sort of accepting of all kinds of looks. And since this was made with I believe Blender, and it's a free accessible software, and it was done for so low of a budget, the focus and attention of a small team on that film really just focused on the story, and they were great storytellers with the long shots. Interesting thing about that movie is pets love that film. You go online,
Yes.
you're going to see lots of pets watching it. My dog was captivated, and it had a lot to do with just no dialogue, long shots, very atmospheric, um, and it really just drew you in, and it drew Willie in, my dog. He was captivated. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's something really special about that film.
Yeah, I actually like went to go get I adopted a black cat after I watched that film, which is incredible. I feel like I
That's
think there was a
awesome.
stat that was shared that like there was an increase in
Oh really?
like black cat
That's awesome.
adoptions, which is great.
Yeah. No, that is great. We need more. Yeah, that was similar to like 101 Dalmatians. There was a big increase in adoptions of Dalmatians
Hmm.
after that film came out. So that's cool to hear.
But okay, so I want to rewind a little bit. So I know you mentioned you co-founded Real FX in
Hmm.
I think it's 1995
That's when I joined. Yeah,
with friends from high school, or am I
that's
mistaken?
right.
Like what was the pitch for that? Were you trying to build a company together, just trying to work, trying to create? Like what was the first intention of that?
So Real Effects had already had started, and they were doing local commercials,
Okay.
and the local industry in Dallas Fort Worth were, for example, like Bell Helicopter, Radio Shack. There was a local kids show being produced that got distributed through PBS called Wishbone, and that was a big opportunity for the company to do some VFX and more traditional storytelling. And so when I came on board, Wishbone was starting to kind of kick into gear a bit, but still the bread and butter of the company was commercial work for local ad agencies. But when I came on, my wish was coming out of art school and having seen that Pixar had just come through my school recruiting for a movie that's going to be about toys that was going to be done with CGI. And I knew that we had those same tools at our fingertips with real effects. It's like, why not that was the question I said to the few of us. I was like, why don't we try to tell our own story, make a CGI feature ourselves
Mm.
here? Why don't we work towards long form entertainment? And so for the for quite a while after that, for at least a decade, it was a struggle because
Mm.
my aspirations with the company were to work us towards long form entertainment, while the bread and butter of the company was just short form commercial work. And it was a very delicate process of making sure the clients were happy and they didn't feel like you were just using them as a stepping stone to just pay the bills so that you could get back to doing what you wanted to do. And that
Right.
was a delicate area to play. Um, but we did. We eventually would do commercials that would start to push the bar for us, that allowed us to experiment more in a more of a traditional looking storytelling format. By that I mean there was an ad agency that needed help winning an account, which was Hasbro, and we did a commercial with them, which was a GI Joe ad pointing people towards the gijoe.com URL, not necessarily selling any specific toy. And that made a big impression because when people saw the commercial, the phone started ringing off the hook at Hasbro because they thought it was a trailer for a CGI GI Joe film.
Mm.
And that led to a lot more work, hundreds of toy commercials that kind of flowed through Real Effects and this ad agency. But at the same time, it opened the door for direct to video, GI Joe, My Little Pony, Transformers work. And that's the thing, I guess. We see these little opportunities, like, oh, if we make it feel like a movie trailer, maybe people will think of us as a company that could pull a movie off.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. It worked that way. So instead of just jumping right into a long form GI Joe CGI movie, we did like a 30-minute DVD that was sold with toys. This was Hasbro's idea, but they saw what we were capable of, and we just kept growing at that point. And then when it came time to do a full-on GI Joe direct-to-video movie, it really required a massive amount of growth for the company. We added a whole second floor to where we were in our building, hired a whole team, created a pipeline. Once you start to go through all that effort, you don't want to go backwards. You want to keep growing on that, especially if you've relocated people, you've added them to your team. And so that we finally started to see ourselves taking these steps towards our greater intentions, our wishes to move into long form. And eventually one day get to maybe doing an original
Mm.
as well. But up until this point, it's always been a service company.
Did you get to that point where you did do a feature?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did. And we learned also, because we were doing a lot of just live action work too, that a VFX house is not something we wanted to become, because
Mm.
VFX is not just that it's hard. It's really hard to just be profitable as a VFX company, and there's so many of them, and it was very competitive in that space. But there were other filmmakers in Texas that were doing things differently, and there was a production designer on one of these commercials we were on who had seen what we were doing. And she said, "Hey, I just came out from a movie, and I'm about to go do the sequel, and I think you and this filmmaker should meet, because the way you are working right now on set is really unique and efficient, and you've got unique sensibilities artistically. I think you would click." And so that filmmaker that she was referring to was Robert Rodriguez, and I knew who that was. I'd read the book and had followed the career, and so I said, "Please, yeah, I'd love an introduction for us." And so a couple of months went by, and then a phone call occurred, and we had an opportunity to make a face-to-face happen. This is something that I think is, and I apologize to anybody who's maybe heard this story before, but it's an important one. If you've chosen to have your studio in somewhere as strange as Texas back in the 90s, you have to try really hard to stand out. And when you're given an opportunity to make an introduction, you can't just sort of like hand someone a demo reel or whatever it was, send them to a URL. Really want to make special first impression. So knowing that Spy Kids was the film that had been made, and that Spy Kids 2 was the next film that was going to be made, came up with this idea of making a spy kit. It had a little DVD player in it and a cell phone, and it had a DVD that you could play. And it had a motion graphics piece that showed a timeline of Robert Rodriguez's career up until that moment in time. And then it showed Real Effects' growth into that moment of time. And it was all intercut with some music. And it ended with press send on the phone, or and it would call my phone. And so we put this whole little package together, and we hand delivered it on the day that we were told that we could potentially have a meeting. And it's funny, we went to this nondescript warehouse outside of Austin. And as we were pulling up, a guy pulls up in a truck with a dog, and the dog jumps out, looks at me, and it's Robert. And he's looking at me, and he sees me holding this weird package. He's like, "What's that? Who are you?" I was like, "Oh God, this wasn't supposed to happen this way." Okay, here's this. He's like, "I got a meeting. Can you come?" Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So come back in like in an hour after I'm done with this meeting. So we come back, and I come in his office, and he sets the box down, and then he opens it for the first time. I was like, "I'm not supposed to be here while you open this," but okay, all right, let's just go along with it. So then he presses send on the phone, and then my phone rings, and then we, oh, okay.
Oh, that's so cool.
But it didn't happen exactly as intended, but he saw the intention behind it. That made a good impression. And then a couple more months go by, and then all of a sudden, I'm living in Arlington, Texas, and I'm not far from Six Flags. And I get a phone call. It's Robert. And he says, "Hey, can you meet me at Six Flags?" And it's early in the morning. I go to Six Flags, and he's like, "Okay, I'm picturing a ride being over here and this ride being over here. Would you be open to making these rides and putting them in and compositing them into these shots?" It's like,
Oh,
it's all on
wow.
the fly. And the VFX who's there from Canada, he's looking at me like, "This is going to be so hard. And I don't want anything to do with this. You're welcome to take these shots." And so our company chose to do this. It was 15 minutes of the beginning of Spy Kids 2 and all the VFX for that film. And so while on set that day, I'm doing drawings of what these rides will look like. Bill Paxton is in costume, and he's looking over my shoulder, and he was like, "The Vomiter." That was the name of one of the rides. I had drawn the sign that kind of rotates over the top of the Vomiter ride. He's like, "That kind of gives the joke away a little bit too much." Like, yeah, okay. So then we tone it back, and then so it was like this real time creativity for a job that I woke up that morning not knowing we would have, and then spending. And this was in the winter. We worked on this all the way till like mid-July. Like,
Wow.
this was an intense project, especially for a small company that was just trying to prove itself. And there's so much more to this story, and you could fill your entire podcast up. But it was a trial by fire. It was another one of those small windows of opportunity that we somehow clawed our way through and lived to tell the tale on the other side. But again, made good impressions, and it led us to the next stepping stone for storytelling, for long form. And also, we learned that VFX and live action maybe is something we need to start to kind of separate from and just focus on the
Mm-hmm.
CGI and the animation side of things. There was a lot of that in this, with the amazing roller coaster rides we were designing. But yeah, it's, you see studios like Rhythm and Hughes that did Life of Pi, and we always looked up to that company. And a movie like Life of Pi just totally destroyed that company. It was just such an abusive era, um, of expecting so much from VFX studios, and
Mm-hmm.
the return for them was so hard to make up. And so finding the company and leaning into their strengths of animation really, I think, was the smart move then. And that's really what Real Effects does to this day. Primarily, is just long form CGI animated feature work.
Yeah. I'm curious. So when you got that call and you went to Six Flags and he
Mm-hmm.
told you like this is what we need, was there any part of you that was like, "Oh, I can't do this," or was it just like, this is an opportunity, I need to seize it, doesn't matter, I'm going to work as hard as I can
Well,
to do it?
you know, At that time, I had two of my partners there with me, and we all looked at each other. Of course, I wouldn't have on my own said, "Yeah, we can do this."
Hmm.
Um, I think there's this blissful naivete between all of us where we like, we'll figure it out. This is too
Hmm.
big of an opportunity to not take. And you had to make the decision right there at the moment. So, yeah, it's not like fake it till you make it, because certainly we knew what it was going to take to do it, but we might not have had all the gear.
Yeah.
At that time, there was still a barrier to entry when it came to these things, when it, like technologically, there was a barrier to entry.
Hmm.
This was also one of the first CGI, and not CGI. It was one of the first all shot digital and distributed digital films, like HD. If you
Wow.
go back and look at Spy Kids 2, when it
I
premiered
remember.
in Austin, it was all HD. And at the opening night, the projector had to get rebooted. Right when the movie started,
Oh
it
my
went
god.
black. It was like, oh, this is what digital cinema is like.
Oh
Your
my
projector
god.
will just go black. Yeah, but it's just part of the early days of that.
And then okay, so fast forward 2009, I think you
Okay.
left Real FX
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah,
started Moonbot Studios with,
that's
is
right.
it Limbert Fabian? Is that how you say it? How do you
Well,
Limbert?
Limbert is one of my creative partners,
Yeah.
and he and I have known each other since we met art school. I convinced him to join me over at Moonbot after starting it a few years later. So
Hmm.
in 2011, I was like, "Hey, you need to come over here." He was still at Real Effects at the time between starting of it, but it doesn't really matter. That's just like finite details that really don't matter anymore. But yeah, when we started the company, Moonbot, I had two other business partners, Lambton Enox and William Joyce. Lambton had come from live action film, and he had been doing a lot of work in New Orleans and lived there. And then Katrina happened, and then he'd relocated productions and everything that he was doing up in Shreveport. And he'd stayed in touch, and he reached out and said, "Hey, you guys should consider starting an animation studio over here, leveraging all the tax credits." And so that conversation heated up, and it really kind of came to a head in 2009 with some Louisiana economic development funds supporting it as well, because we did some workforce training along the way. So when we were making our first project together with the new studio, we were also building a company and also training people at the same time. It's a little bit all that at once, with the creation of the fantastic flying books of Mr. Morse Lessmore, that being the first project we did. And then Limbert, as you mentioned, came in and joined when people were seeing that film make its way around the short film festival circuit. There was CAA, and they had also seen that we had made an interactive app that was like a companion to the short.
Oh, cool.
And they had a client, Chipotle, at the time, and they had an idea of making a video game and a short working together. And they were like, well, these guys look like they could do both. And
Mm.
so that conversation really kicked into high gear even before the Flying Books had been nominated for an Academy Award. And so we were kind of already on that path to doing that Chipotle project before that happened. And Limbert came on board to help co-direct that with me, because it was just at that point things were starting to really kick into high gear for the company.
I want to talk about that commercial in a second, but first I wanted to touch on the short. I watched it. It's beautifully done and won the Academy Award, correct?
That's right.
So take us through kind of the process. Like, how long was that in development for? And what was your experience making it?
Well, we had drawn some storyboards for it even prior to starting Moonbot, and had kicked it around for a little while. And my partner, William Joyce, had been drawing some illustrations with the intention that one day it would be a book. And so these ingredients were kind of like coming in kind of randomly. Like, we were talking about the kind of movies we love. We love Buster Keaton films. We love Technicolor movies. We were kind of, have had just witnessed what was happening with Katrina, people having their lives erased and having to kind of figure out how to start over and write new chapters in their lives. My partner also had a mentor, a publishing mentor, who had recently passed away. And so life and death and love of cinema and love of children's illustrated literature. All these things were starting to like be these ingredients that were falling into a pot. We started to stir it and then taste it, and it was like, oh, actually, this kind of tastes good. So when we started Moonbot, we were like, well, this must be the first thing we should do. And we had already been deeply wanting for years to make a short film that we would put into film festivals, because at that time it was very clear that that was the pathway. If you were going to be an indie animation studio, that was the pathway to getting a long form, is to show people what you're capable of with a short. And we had tried it once with The Man in the Moon, which I don't know, I don't even think I even shared that with you,
I don't think so.
which was a short where we had first started to build a relationship, William and I, in 1997. And it was a precursor to what eventually became the story Rise of the Guardians. And it was about, you know, this Avengers of storybook characters that we're all familiar with, from Mother Goose to the Man in the Moon to Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. And that little short we did about the Man in the Moon is what was seen by lots of people in the industry. It was a VHS tape that kind of went from place to place, but it never went to film festivals. And since we didn't really distribute that, we regretted it. And we were like, man, we still need to make a short so people could see what we're capable of. And so this is this was the perfect timing of that. And it was funny, this past weekend, you know, the Michael Jackson movie came out, and I was talking to my daughter about this film, and she had remembered that there was a Michael Jackson project I was attached to. And she's like, how did that all go down? It didn't have something to do with us moving to Shreveport. I'm like, yes, it did. So bear with me a moment. This is a little side tangent story, but it relates. We were in the process of selling this concept, which we called the Guardians of Childhood, which eventually became Rise of the Guardians, which was sold to DreamWorks. But we were in the process of selling it to either two studios. One was Walden Media, and they were going to approach it like Narnia, like the film they had made before, which was going to be live action, which was really exciting to think about. The other being Katzberg's company, DreamWorks, and they were going to approach it like CGI. Mm-hmm. And we were, at the time, getting deeper into bed with Walden Media because they had This Is It, which was a Michael Jackson IMAX movie that was going to be based off of the concert tour. So Michael Jackson was gearing up for this concert tour called This Is It, and it was going to be shot with IMAX cameras, and there were going to be animated segments that kind of wove different segments of the concert together. It's funny because there's that Billie Eilish IMAX concert that came out. So imagine, you know, this amazing IMAX concert with these animated segments, kind of like Yellow Submarine, weaving segments together. And I got really excited because they were attaching me as a creative director on the project. I got to meet Michael, and it was a brief meeting, and I had queued up on my laptop when we were in this meeting a music video I'd made when I was a kid, a Beat It music video. And I was like, oh, I'm going to show him this. But there's all these suits in the room, and it was going to be awkward. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll wait till next time. But I had a ticket already to come back to the Staples Center the following week and a half later to like get deeper into the creative process with Michael. During that week off was spring break, and I took my family to Shreveport. At that time, Lambton was saying, hey, you should come over here. Picture yourself starting this company, and we could make something great. Maybe Morris Lessmore could be the short we do first. And so after a week of spending time in Shreveport and visualizing ourselves living there and only having, you know, a few weeks to get the house up on the market and then getting kids in school and all that, I told my wife over breakfast, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, both these things sound like amazing opportunities. It's like I need a sign. A few hours later, my wife calls and says, hey, turn on the news. This was when Michael had been reported of having a cardiac arrest that same day.
Wow.
And so I got a call from a friend who had kind of known. I'd kind of confided in him and told him what I was torn over, like what to do. And he says, I think your decision's been made. I think you're going to Shreveport. Wow. And we did. We're on rails to make that happen at that point, and putting the house on the market a few days later, and things kind of took off. And the next 9 years were nuts.
Well, first of all, what a sign. Like, that could have happened like 7 days later, but it just happened to
It,
be when.
that breakfast that
Yeah.
morning, yeah, yeah,
Wow. The universe
it
is
was very
wild.
strange. It is, and I remember coming home, and that's all you could hear on the radio. I remember coming back to this house we were staying in, and the radio was on, and it was just everybody was playing Michael Jackson music. Yeah, what a weird moment.
Yeah. But I mean, it set you off on this incredible journey. Has there been multiple moments in your career where you've asked for signs and they have come in that way, or is that kind of the most prominent one that you've experienced?
I think that's definitely one of the most prominent ones, but I think anytime where there's been a big chasm, or I don't know what's going to happen next, um, things always work out. And it's not just because of, oh, some kismet thing happens. It's because I think everybody has the instinctual skills to like be prepared for that moment,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's obvious or not. There's all the survival skills that kick into high gear to open the door for what looks like luck, or open the door for what looks like some sort of magic that happens, but it's really you are working towards this your whole life.
Yeah.
I think the things that happen at Moonbot were very magical and can be seen that way from the outside looking in. Like it was just an amazing string of things, but it was also 15 years of premeditated work of like seeing what would work in the industry and what doesn't work, and where our focus should be, where it shouldn't be. And so by jumping in and creating that short, it was the right time to do that. And it was the right thing to do for a company like us to start to stand out.
Did you have any sense while making the short that it was going to land the way it did with audiences, but also with the Academy?
Yeah, it didn't land well right out of the gate like we thought. I mean, we were a bit little pretentious on some of the ideas. For example, the biggest animation film festival in the world is Annecy in Annecy, France, and it we we tipped our hat to French culture a little bit in this film. It
Didn't
didn't
land?
land, and nobody for Annecy asked for this film to be screened there. Like we submitted it, got rejected, and I think there's a couple other errors that may have happened along the way in the submission process, but that really kind of was a humbling experience. The other is the first 2 or 3 film festivals the film was in. I mean, it was very little. There was very little fanfare. You just got to be patient for it to find its audience. And the thing that happened that really kind of I think gave us the confidence that something special was happening with this film was that when we made it, we were our own worst critics, and we would show it to ourselves, the reels, and then we would slowly expand the group out a little bit to other people on the team. And when we showed just the storyboards on reels in to our slightly larger team, and everybody was crying after the film
Mm.
played, we were like, oh wow, okay, we're triggering some emotion here. This is working. And not until you, whatever the emotion you're aiming for in your story, not until you hit that, um, should you move beyond the next step, the big, move beyond. I don't know, what am I trying to? I'm trying to use a board game in metaphor, but it's not working. So you go beyond this one moment to the next, but you don't go beyond it until you've checked the box that you're connecting emotionally with the story.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you should go back and fix things.
I think it's interesting because, I mean, just on the point of the festival circuit and like, I feel like it always, like, I did my first short and I know that's how we connected in the first place. And my
Mm-hmm.
expectation of the festival circuit being the first time was like, oh, we need to get into like one of the big festivals like Tribeca,
Mm-hmm.
Sundance, South by Southwest. And when we didn't get into that, I was like, oh, well, what's the
Mm-hmm.
point? But we ended up doing like a really long run like locally, like smaller festivals, and you kind of garnered this really beautiful community in places
Mm-hmm.
that like almost felt more valuable than being shown at like and I can't say that for sure because we weren't at Tribeca or whatever, but it was such a different like reality than what I expected, and I'm so glad that it happened the way that it did. And I'm curious for you, whether it be that film or a different film, like what has your experience been with festivals, and what advice would you give?
Yeah, they all the festivals. There's so many people who love storytelling in all these festivals, and they all come at it from different angles. And so, yeah, you can't underestimate the power of the exposure you get, no matter how small the festival is or no matter how big it is. Absolutely. I think it's hard to do all the forensics on all the festivals because we've attended a lot with a lot of our different films, but it's hard to kind of like break it down and go, well, had we not entered this little guy here, we wouldn't have made it to this one here and wouldn't have led to that one there. But things just happen, and a lot of film festival things are just out of your control. All you can do is just wish for the best and submit, do your part of the job,
Mm-hmm.
and wish for the best. So much of it's out of your control at that point, but you did something right. You showed up and you did your part.
Right. It's like
You've
make
got
the
to
best thing you can, and that's let it
and
go.
you've got to trust in the hard work you put into all that storytelling you did, because that at the end of the day, that thing that you made is what's going to unlock the door to getting its exposure that it deserves, so rightfully deserves.
Right. It that's so
Right.
that's such great advice, but it's so much harder in practice. You know what I mean? Like
And,
it's
oh,
like
absolutely. Yeah, no, knowing when it's no longer in your hands is something that you don't learn until you've done this a lot, and that only worry about things, or don't even worry about anything, but only be concerned with the things that you can control.
right.
That's I don't know if that makes any sense, but
No, it makes a
I
lot of
think I have to
sense.
let go of anxiety and worry about stuff that anxiety and worry. At the end of the day, I define it as you care,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes it okay. When I'm really worried about wanting to say the right thing on your podcast, it's because I care,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
But and still not going to do it right. But at least you know this, and hopefully you can feel that. Anyway, I'm getting off the point. But film festivals and the journey through the film festival circuit, everybody's different, and something will pop off. You just have to be patient, and you also need to you have to be persistent, and you hope for the best in some of the bigger ones. But like you said, there is such a strong community. I think the Orlando Film Festival was really special, and it was not really on my radar. And
Mm-hmm.
so many great responses, and so many people who love that medium of animation became such champions and disciples for the story through that
Yeah.
screening there. I really remember that evening being very special with just all the conversations that happened after the screening.
Yeah, it's always
Yeah.
so fun to also like see how different audiences react in different
Mm-hmm.
places, like
Mm-hmm.
and some are unexpected ways. And it's, I don't know, I just think that every filmmaker should do the festival circuit at one point because it's such a eye-opening experience, I feel like, and in a way that you like are attached and not attached to your work. It's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, yeah. Being able to just watch with an audience multiple times and different reactions are happening. It's it's important, I think, to share your work with people along the way when you're making it.
Mhm.
Um, had we not shared the Morse Lessmore film with a few of our favorite filmmaker friends, it would have been a different story. There were some really big notes that came to us
Mm.
that subconsciously maybe we were circling, but we hadn't formulated them in our head. And then I tell you this, and you'll be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you would have done that. That would have been horrible." But yes, in our story, we were going to have our character fly off with his book and just go off with his book. He wasn't going to leave it behind. I was like, "What were we thinking? Why would he? Why would he not leave the book behind?"
Yeah.
And yeah, that was I don't know what we were thinking, but
From a
the
visual standpoint, that's cool, but story wise, I feel like how it ended up makes the most sense. If that, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. And there was another scene that was just so irrelevant and stupid. That was like an additional minute to the film that we cut, um, and we thought it was funny, but it just wasn't, and it
Mm,
didn't add any value. And it was really hard because we had already gone through a lot of time and money and rendering it.
yeah.
So yeah, you get these notes from friends when you share, and it makes it better. And even with film festivals, I would imagine. I don't know if you've ever changed your edit after you've been in a film festival, but we
Not
did.
yet.
We yeah, yeah. I can imagine that happening once I get it to be a big boy and start making longer format movies and sharing it with audiences. And I'm looking forward to making a feature one day and screening it with a larger audience before it goes like into distribution, and then making some tough choices to make the
Yeah.
film better.
I've
I think
heard
that's
that's
cool.
very common in the feature space, like that they'll premiere it at South by and then make some tweaks based on the reactions and notes and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
you don't have to do what people tell you, but at least you go back and figure out what wasn't working
Yeah.
and fix it. Yeah,
No, it's fascinating. And after that short, like you mentioned, you did the Chipotle ad. Do you think that your experience making the short, did you approach that ad in a different way because of the short film you made?
it wasn't like making a commercial at all. It was totally like making another short film. It had a lot of really talented creative people that were trusting us, but at the same time, we valued their opinion. I think that was what made Limber and I different from a lot of filmmakers at that moment in time. Was that we were very collaborative for 20 almost 20 years. We had been working with creative directors and directors on their commercials, and we were there to be collaborative. And then all of a sudden now people are looking at us to call the shots, but we had built this sort of um, manner of like, no, we value your opinion too. We want to hear it, and we want to be collaborative. And so the team that was on the CA marketing team, and even the creatives that were at Chipotle, we valued their opinions, and
Mhm.
we dialed things in and made it better that way.
Yeah.
I mean, we went through like 60 different animatics before we locked in and went into CG. And you can do that when your piece is only 2.5 minutes long. You can do a lot of
Yeah.
variation, and you can really dial it in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that
Yeah.
came that became one of the most awarded branded pieces ever, right? Like it was like 14 million views or maybe more than that.
It,
Like,
yeah, it's nuts. And yeah, it's an amazing piece of commercial history
yeah.
and to have been a part of. And it real affects this was another one of those things that was just like, we need to pinch ourselves. For Limbert and I, for those 15 to 20 years of just trying to get to a commercial that would be seen on that level,
Mm,
never happened. We never could get there. We were like, man, one day maybe we'll do a commercial and end up with the Super Bowl. Maybe we'll do this or maybe do that. We would never get those opportunities. And then by leaving this company that we created, starting over, it's like you always hear these stories about like rock bands are never good in their own neighborhood. They have to like go to another country to become a big deal or whatever. It's
hmm.
sort of similar to us. We had to like kind of leave our neighborhood and go somewhere else, to spread our wings. And the first thing out of the gate was more Lessmore, and then the second thing out of the gate was this Chipotle spot. It was nuts because they both were the best in category for what they were and how they were received by the audience.
Yeah.
And every time we would get some sort of like accolade or celebratory response for what we made, I was just like, this is all, what are we going to do next?
Right.
It's freaking me out. But what I was hopeful for is that we'd get to long form,
Hmm.
continue to go to something longer. And that was difficult. It still proves to be difficult. Yeah.
Right. Because was
Yeah.
the next thing, what was the next thing you did? Was it Lost Ollie or was there other things in between that?
Well, since we started to move into more of this interactive space by making an interactive iPad app for our short, The Flying Books, we started to build a small little division of developers and engineers that were talented in the interactive space. And we were playing around with augmented reality at the time, which was very new. But we had this vision that you could aim your camera at the book that we were making and the illustrations would come to life.
Mm.
PlayStation saw that we were doing this before we had received our Academy Award and said, hey, we are working on some AR for the PlayStation, and we have this thing called the Wonder Book, and we were wondering if you guys could invent a story for this platform. That got us really excited. Literally, before we'd even had a chance to sleep after the Academy Awards, we were getting on a plane going to London to meet with PlayStation to start work on the Wonder Book, which doesn't make any sense. If you're gonna like have something as amazing as like receiving an Academy Award for a short film, you should stick around in Hollywood for a few days and have
Yeah.
meetings with people about features.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do that. We went to London and started talking about a video game that was in AR. So we started to make this game. We called it Diggs Nightcrawler, and it's sort of this Humphrey Bogart inchworm, little bookworm
Mm-hmm.
that lives in a book, and he's a detective, and there's a crime that's occurred in Library City. Humpty Dumpty's been bumped off the wall. So it's this noir fairy tale that we got really excited about telling. And all these CG animation and hard work that went into that was the length of a feature, but it was in this platform.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like making an animated feature next, but it was made for a very niche, novel technology. And when it came out, the Wonder Book, it was dead on arrival because the PlayStation 4 was announced and it wasn't made for PlayStation 4. So when it hit shelves, PlayStation 4 was also hitting shelves at the same time.
Oh God.
So
But that's a PlayStation error, no? That's a
sure. I mean, yeah. It's such a massive company doing lots of different things, not really paying attention to what the other's doing. But this is just on us that when you make something and you put a lot of heart and soul and time into it, you need people to see it.
yeah.
If people don't see it, they're like, well, they start to forget about you and they don't know what you've been up to. And that was something that we had to work our way out of. And we didn't learn our lesson there because we kept doing things in that space. Like we were starting to build this team that was really good at this new, exciting, interactive stuff, and we wanted to do more. And you can get enamored by the sparkly, shiny stuff of like new technology and play in that space, but be mindful of the fact that when you're on the cutting edge, you're so far out on the horizon, there's only like 1% of people that see what you're doing. The other thing I like to say is when you're on the cutting edge, you get cut.
True.
A lot of scars. So yeah, in hindsight, maybe we would have done things differently, but it is what we did. And it led us down such a unique, strange path, which there's no regrets about. It's just, we've ended up having a very strange and wonderful portfolio of work.
If you were to do it again, would you have stayed in Hollywood for like a couple of days and then gone to London? Like, would you have thought to do that?
In hindsight,
Yeah.
yeah, we would have entertained all options. But the thing is, you should make a decision relatively quick on what you should do next, because the heat starts to cool off pretty fast after
Right.
after an accolade like that.
Because people are like, oh, what's next? And you're like, oh, I don't know.
You need to be prepared to answer that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going to do next? What do you want to do next? You should say, here's a script for the thing I want to do next. Okay, let's make it. Great, go. That's what we should have been prepared to do.
Yeah. No, that's such great advice because I've heard that as well. Like going to like the festivals with the short, like being like,
Yeah.
you're gonna be asked what are you making next? What's the next script?
Mm-hmm. The other thing that was circling in our minds is because we had, one of the caveats of creating the studio in Louisiana was that we're making a studio. We're giving people money. They have salaries. They have zip codes. They contribute to the economy of that part of town. That's why we got the discounts. And so then at that point, you have 20, and then we worked our way up to 40 lives that we were concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were out pitching movie ideas, I would see like, oh, I'd go to Amblin, and there was like 10 people working here. I'd go to Imagine, 5 people in this office. We go over here. It's like these offices, even Bad Robot, it was like these were small teams, and they were development teams. And they had less people in their offices than we did. And what's going on in the back of our minds is like, well, we need to take on more commercial work to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And then that starts to separate your skills or your time that needs to be focused on, let's say, the original work. And the company started as an original company, original IP company, and that was the intention. But there's a lot of like distraction to just keeping the lights on. And so in hindsight, probably shouldn't have had as many people on the
Yeah.
team, and it should have been contract labor. But being in Louisiana, it's really hard to find the contract labor. At that time, there wasn't a lot of remote work happening. You needed them to be there, especially if you're going to leverage the credit. So anyway, it's what it was. But in hindsight now, like, be done so differently.
What would you say was the project that was most personal to you that you've made?
Well, I mean, I I think every project you've got, and I try to do this, is try to find something personal in the story that you're telling so that you can make that story as good as it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
So in More Lessmore, um, you know, I thought of it as a love letter to my parents who had passed on. The piano, my dad was a classically trained concert pianist, so that was important little ingredient that was thrown in the mix. A story like Radio Flyer with, taking flight with Radio Flyer. That one was about being a father and instilling the love of imagination into your child. Something that I was living at the moment with my kids. There's a magical organ in an old theater in the second More Lessmore short we did for Dolby called Silent. And that is literally stripped from how my parents met, their romantic story of how they met in Monroe, Louisiana, in an old theater where my dad played the organ. And my mom's dad ran the theater, and that's how they met. So like every story, there's a little something, there's a little ingredient.
I love that.
And so it's hard to say, pick one,
Yeah, and I feel like when you do put in those personal moments, whether it be just a moment or a theme or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, it tends to resonate the most with people. It's like the world forcing you to be vulnerable and like share your
Yeah,
story.
right. It is so weird. It's like it feels so foreign and alien just to be out there vulnerable, saying something that's never been said before, because it's your words and
Mm-hmm.
it's your experience. But when it's genuine, that's really where it clicks with the audience. And
Yep.
so you really have to just trust that you need to be betting on yourself in that this tale that I'm starting to weave is authentic because it's true to me. And you just have to trust that it's going to find an audience because they're going to see that. They're going to feel that authenticity.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love that. Is there anything that you wanted to chat about, whether it be a specific project?
Well, one project that Limber and I recently completed. It's called Chase Your Dreams. And we did it leveraging this new volume stage that's been built in Fort Worth in partnership with this new program, which is inside of Texas A&M. It's a combination of all these majors and disciplines. And we worked with faculty at the school and students to pull off the film. We were invited in to do this, and they wanted our original idea to kind of represent the aspirations of a student. And when we came up with the concept, it was just real simple. It was like, when you know what you want to do, that dream, you chase it. And wouldn't it be cool to actually just make a short film that's just a chase sequence of you chasing that thing that you want for your career? And so we came up with this idea: a little girl that wants to be a dancer, and there's a imaginary character. It's got these dance shoes, and she chases this creature until she catches him and gets those shoes on. And so it was fun to bring that to life and make a little mini movie and leverage all these new tools at our disposal and work with choreographers and musicians, VFX artists that are all part of the A&M ecosystem. So there's more to come on that one, and I'm excited eventually to get the permission to be able to share the URL with you and then find out where we're going to put this into festivals. But we're literally just right now kind of figuring out the campaign for that.
I was gonna say, can we watch it anywhere? But you will keep us posted, and we'll share it when it's out.
Yeah, please.
That's so exciting. I remembered one question I wanted to ask, which is super random, but I saw that you worked on Pixel Perfect, the movie.
Oh wow,
It,
yeah. Did you see
I
it?
it's epic. It's like such like a iconic film. One, what did you do on it? And two, how did you get that job?
All right, so that's one of those movies where Disney Channel, we were doing quite a bit of Disney Channel work. So
Okay.
we worked on Halloween Town 2,
Awesome.
designed some CG characters that come to life in that story. And then I think that was off on the coattails of that into Pixel Perfect. Same director, and they had some VFX they needed done for that. So this is when we were still doing VFX and some design work. So they wanted this crazy time travel device that's like going through the internet that she rides. It's like this cab system inside the internet. And it's kind of Matrixy-ish at the time, now looking back. But we had gone into night shoots when I showed up. So there was a VFX soup from our company that was there, and he was getting exhausted and needed to come home. And so I picked up where he left off. So when I showed up, I had to transition into night, working all night and then sleeping during the day. And this was in Utah with a production company called Salty Pictures, and was there for the remainder of that film production. Yeah, Pixel Perfect. I mean,
So
some
cool.
pretty. It's like, yeah, designing what the internet looks like. Yeah, that's what we worked on.
It's
Yeah,
such an like an a such a cool time to be doing those type that movie. Like
it's
I
that
don't know, it
shiny,
was
silvery early 2000s.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh well, amazing. Okay, what is the best filmmaking advice you've ever heard or received?
It's a hard one. I mean, observing so many filmmakers on set through the years, whether it's a commercial or if it's a longer format project, the what it's not like they're imparting wisdom to you. It's just you observe people through their actions, and there's some people who are just, or you can tell there's just like they're getting berated with so many no's and so many problems and time crunches, and you see how these people react in this moment of tension with such grace, and you know that there's a battle going on in their brain, and there's like their heart rate is racing, but on the outside they're keeping it together.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really important, if you start to exude all of this negative energy and you let it come out, it affects everybody else on set.
Yeah.
And it's the same for even in post-production. And so when somebody can find the ability to enjoy the process of the moment, and like even with all the stress of it, like still find the joy in it, and like make sure you're having a good time and remembering like this is, we're doing make believe here, we're having a good time, even though you know the clock is ticking and we're running out of money and there's no time to do all the things you really want to do. When somebody who's in the leadership role of keeping things moving forward and doing it in a way that with such grace, then I'm always in awe of that, and I always want to aspire to be like that.
Yeah.
So advice sometimes can come in the form of actions, and that's what I've observed. That's what I immediately think of, because it's hard for me to like formulate a sentence that somebody said some magical thing like catchphrase, and I'm like, yeah, I got that. But it'll come to me. I'm sure there's several.
What's the worst filmmaking advice you've ever heard?
Okay, I'll use the same example of observation, but I won't name names.
Okay.
You don't want to start a shoot at 6 a.m. with a Jägermeister in a limo.
Oh my god.
And you don't want to, at 3 a.m., threaten to strip down to your underwear to get someone to do the VFX that they need to do on your shot. Um,
This
so
happened.
I think in between the lines of all of that, there's probably some drug use happening in another room from this person. It was a weird project to be on, um, but they were dealing with lots of stuff, I'm sure, and
Yeah.
it was years and years of being a director out of the 80s in the music video industry that
Yeah.
probably created the conditions for where they were in their life at that moment. But yeah, that was, I think, the thing that I struggle with the most, and I continue to do, is just remembering people's names, but wanting to kind of set the tone right out of the gate in a production, is to have everybody around the table together and explain the intentions and explain the desire for everyone to be on the same page in their form of communication. Um, and then one thing that we did that I was really proud of at Moonbot was that we would always have what we call weeklies. On Fridays, we would all get in the room and just look at each other's work and celebrate each other's work, look at it up on the screen. And it just was like an open critique. It felt like art school. And
Yeah.
to have that just open dialogue where anybody in the room could talk about it, that was, I think, really great. It's because, I mean, why would I be threatened as a director to have a student that I'd hired to have an opinion on something that's in the room? Like, it's up to me to take their recommendation or not if they have a note. But
Right.
they had an opportunity to share their note. They had an opportunity to, like, have a voice in the room, and that was really great for
Yeah.
them. And sometimes there's some really insightful stuff that comes out of these dialogues. I just watched last night with my wife the Lauren documentary about Lauren Michaels, which is
Oh, I
really
haven't
great.
seen it yet. Yeah.
It's a good one, but it's a really good one to see. And he talks about how, as he's gotten older and these younger comedians that come in, there's a humor that he might not get, but he's in the room and he sees how other people are laughing at it. So he's
Yeah.
like, well, it must be funny.
So he
Still.
starts laughing.
Well, he's like, these people are laughing. So he's like reading the room. So,
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to let that stick, or we're going to go with that, even though it might not click for you. And I
Right.
think what I'm trying to get at is that there's something to that in that collaborative effort of filmmaking. It's that there's something, we can all elevate each other if we all are like-minded from the start. And I think when you have a lookbook and you're able to share your vision and you're able to kind of point off to the horizon and go, we're headed to that mountain over there in this film journey, and everybody sees that mountain you're headed to, then we all know where we're headed, and we can all go back into the trenches and we all go back into the dark forest for a while, but we all know we're headed that way.
Yeah.
And if somebody at the beginning goes, I don't want to go to that mountain, that's not what I want, then great, you go on another project. And so that way you have all the right people with you. They all have their sensibilities and the vibe. Everybody's on the chemistry is there to get to that goal for that story.
Yeah.
And so it's important, I think, to kind of set things off on the right foot at the beginning and then to stay connected through the process.
That's a good segue into the next one, which is, what was something you used to believe was true about making films that now you have a changed perspective on?
Well, when we were starting out in high school trying to make things that looked more cinematic,
Mhm.
we were always blaming it on the lack of quality gear. There's no excuses now. And it's funny because Zoe and I, my oldest daughter and I were just talking about this the other day. It's like, you hear this all the time. There's the guy, he's going to pull the phone out of his pocket. You got the whole movie making process in your pocket. And it's like, I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
You have no excuses. It's not that. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying though that for us at that time, it did feel like, oh, we could blame it on something, and it was that we didn't have access to some gear, and so
Hmm.
people wouldn't take what we were making seriously. But that argument doesn't hold up. El Mariachi was shot with like 3/4 inch, I want to say, and then transferred to film. Like it, I don't remember the whole process, but you find a way to get your story done. What's more important is you don't wait. So like
Hmm.
that Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Place You'll Go, somewhere in the middle of the book, there's a section about waiting. And there's like this sort of like location where people blame things on other people because they have to wait and they never get anything done because they have to wait. It's like, that doesn't exist. It shouldn't exist, but it's a psychosis we all fall into.
Yeah.
And so I guess I've forgotten your question now, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that we can't blame it on anything. But when it comes to filmmaking, what was your question? What's like different now? Is it
Yeah,
now
like
versus
what
then?
did you used to believe that's now not true in your
Yeah,
belief
I used to
system?
believe I used to believe I could blame it on something that was out of my
Mm,
control. Now, the only person that you can blame is yourself
yeah,
for not not just getting up and just going for it,
just doing it like Nike
just
says.
doing it. They do say that. It's still true today as it was then.
Still holds up.
It really does, doesn't it?
It really does. Like you could just, that's the answer to a lot of things, is just
Mm-hmm.
do it and then see what
Mm-hmm.
happens.
It's so easy to say it. It's so hard to put in practice.
Hmm.
The best advice I'm now remembering came to me through a guy named David. It's been too long. Needham, David Needham. He was head of finances for real effects. He was our CFO. David Needham. I had called him thinking about doing Moonbot, and he had left real effects at that time. He was on his own already, and he goes, "If you're ever going to bet on anything, just bet on yourself. If you're sticking around at a company because of the stock options versus like having an instinct in yourself that something cool could happen if you just go off and try something new, bet on yourself." And that was where I was at that time. That proved to be true, and I have to remember that moving forward. When we get to a position where there's a new exciting opportunity, but it may have a lot of risk financially,
Hmm.
my gut is to go for it.
Take it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, last one. If you could pick any role in the credits to be remembered for long after you're gone, what would it be? And it could be a film credit, it could be something else, like whatever comes to mind.
I don't know if we can find video of this, but it'd be pretty awesome if we could. So the Sunshine Factory. I was a child actor, and it was a sort of HR puff and stuff like show, and it was called the Sunshine Factory, and I was on that. So if there's some old video of that credit, I'd love to find it.
That's the one you
If
want?
not, if not, I think one that I think is pretty poignant is my credit as a concept artist on Rise of the Guardians,
Oh, cool.
because this is a hard one to swallow, but it's like that movie would not exist had I not called up William Joyce.
Hmm.
And I found his phone number in a payphone booth. And that goes back to 1997. And I said, hey, these sketches that you've got here, I think we should figure out a way to turn that into a short. Maybe one day it'll turn into a movie. We did The Man in the Moon, eventually found its way to DreamWorks and became a film. But I did not get attached to it in any sort of co-director position or anything like that, or executive producer or anything like that, because I had left the company, Real Effects, and I was starting Moonbot,
Hmm.
taking a risk on something new at that time. And so it's just a tiny little credit that'll scroll by at the end. There's no
But
front credit.
but there's
But
so
yeah,
much like there's so much more depth to it than that, which is so cool to
yeah,
hear.
yeah,
Well, Thank you so much, Brandon, for coming on. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to see all the stuff you were sharing about what's coming next. And yeah, I just appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you for creating this podcast, one for yourself, just to learn and to share that learning with other people. It's a really great gift you're giving to people. And so I'm just honored to be a part of it.